In the Pits now has a Patreon. Whether you want to get directly involved with the show, have a product or brand you want to promote, or just want to show support, In the Pits Patreon has tiers for all levels. Head to patreon.com/inthepitspaintballpodcast to check out the supporter, sponsor, and partner tiers. Opening up a Patreon was a level I could never have imagined getting to when starting this show a year ago. And whether I get 1,000 subscriptions or not a single one, I'm still super thankful for all of the support I've received from all of you. Enjoy the episode. In the Pits is partnered with Hydra. Designed by players for players, you can outfit yourself in Hydra gear from head to toe. Have confidence that when you make a purchase from Hydra, you are purchasing a well-tested and well-thought-out product, trusted by several top teams, including first-place semi-pro team, PaintballFit.com. I personally recommend their Hydra Black knee pads. Purchases over $100 receive free shipping. Head to hydra.fit to browse their selection and discover the Hydra mentality. In the Pits is partnered with XTPL Events. The Extreme Tournament Paintball League is a series put on by the Lukow family of Paintball Fit fame that gives the opportunity for players to learn and grow together as a team. 3-man, Challengers and Champions X-Ball, Draft Mech X-Ball, and even Youth 3v3. There's something for everyone at XTPL. Not to mention prize toss the event leagues. In the Pits is partnered with Skull Monkeys Paintball. Equip, engage, excel. In the Pits is partnered with BEM Wraps. Behind every mask is a unique and creative player. Tap into it when you order your next custom headpiece. Their Build-A-Band lets you communicate with them one-on-one to make your order just the way you want, all the way down to the color of the stitch. Check out their Instagram at BEMWraps for drops and build videos of them working on orders. They offer very competitive pricing, so reach out today to get started on your own one-of-a-kind headpiece. In the Pits is partnered with Uno's Jerky. Made right here in the state of Texas by JC Limon, Uno's has some of the best tasting jerky around, and each flavor has ties back to Texas paintball. I personally recommend the Texas Titan flavor. Head to unosjerky.com and use code PITS10, where a portion of every purchase will go back into the Texas paintball scene. In the Pits is partnered with Compete. Compete is a Texas-based brand by Jell Stewart of professional team AC Diesel that provides custom jerseys, pants, headbands, straps, tech shirts, and any other soft goods to help individuals and teams compete at the highest level. Support Texas Paintball and message Compete on Facebook or Instagram and mention In the Pits Podcast for 10% off your entire order. In the Pits is sponsored by FUAthletics, created with a purpose and focused on building a better you. We are a brand that matters in your workout, and every purchase gives back to cancer research. Go to thefuathletics.com and use code INTHEPITS25 for 25% off of your order. In the Pits is partnered with Get Dat Shot. Get Dat Shot now offers first-in-line photo and video editing, 20% off Get Dat Shot merch, and 20% off prints to all teams that wear the Get Dat Shot logo on their jersey. Message GetDat_shot on Facebook or Instagram to become a Get Dat Shot program team. In the Pits is partnered with Paintball Kumite. Paintball Kumite is a program designed by Colt Roberts of professional team San Antonio X Factor to take paintball players of all ages, experience levels, and skill groups and mold them into champions. The program breaks the game down into small, easy-to-learn sessions designed to help you master the fundamentals so that you can elevate your game. Newcomers to the program get a free 1-hour introductory class when mentioning In the Pits. To sign up for a class, message at Paintball Kumite on Instagram. Welcome, everybody, to episode 51 of In the Pits Paintball Podcast. This podcast is focused on everything that has to do with the paintball scene here in Texas, from professional players and teams to new divisional programs, local tournament series, field owners, Texas-based brands, even photographers and videographers. Every week, we'll have a short and sweet episode with a new topic and a new special guest. I'm Christian Smith. I'm a player for the Texas Titans, and this episode we are going in the pits with Kal Leach, player for the KC Missouri Allstars. Cal, how are you doing this evening?
Doing great, man. Doing great. How about yourself?
Doing good. Yeah, we just hit a huge milestone last week, episode 50, and next week we got the 1 year of the show. So we're fitting you in right here, right at the end of chapter 1 of this thing.
Nice. Excited to be a part of that.
Hell yeah. All right, let's get started. So this first question is brought to us by XTPL Events. So for those listening that maybe don't know about you, how long have you been involved in the Texas paintball scene?
So I guess I've been playing for, about a year about 11 years now, I guess I'd say. So started about 2013, I want to say. Yeah, 2013, 2012. And then whenever I turned 12, got into the tournament side of things and just went from there. So
And just for reference for everybody, how old are you now?
I am 20. I'll turn 21 in September.
So you've been playing for over 10 years at this point, which is more than half your life now. You've been involved in paintball.
Just broke that breach right there. Half my life. So happy about it, though.
That's crazy. So what are some of the teams that you have played for over the years?
All right. So this is an extensive list, honestly. So I started with a team named Outlaws Destruction Crew out of Outlaw Paintball out in Pflugerville.
Shout out to ODK.
Started out, Jared Sherman, great guy. He kind of was the one who taught me a lot during that time. And then a couple people told me there, hey, you're too young to step up to D4. So I was like, you know what, man, I'm gonna make the break. I'm gonna go try out for a team and try and play D4. Because felt like I was ready to push the limits. Went over, played with Notorious, played with Marky Franz and those guys over there out at X Factor at the time. Great group of guys, love that. And then I got asked to go play D2, jumped from D4 to go play D2 with Diesel at the end of that season. That was, my first break into, high-level paintball. And then from there, went on to play with Los Angeles Collision and the whole violence community over there. Shout out those guys. Love those guys to death. Another family. And then ended up playing with Indianapolis Mutiny. And then I guested with Ruthless, played a couple events with the Jits, didn't really work out monetary wise. So, but great people over there. Played in the Midwest with Vintage, and then, here we are. We're back playing with the KC Missouri Allstars. Played a little bit with Plum Life before that, one event, and then now here we are playing with the Allstars. So super happy about that.
And that's a lot of teams for someone who's so, still so young and still has so much left to give in the sport. So this next question brought to you by Skull Monkeys Paintball. So tell us, what got you into paintball for the first time?
Man, I was 10 years old, and my friend was had a birthday party. So I went out there and just went running down the field like it was Nerf, basically. Just having a blast, getting shot up. So I was like, hey, this is cool. So came back to Austin, realized that there was a field about 10, 15 minutes from my house, and went over there and basically said, hey, if y'all let me work here and just pay me in paintballs and stuff, then I'll work for y'all. So I go work on the weekends at Austin Paintball out in Dripping Springs, and I'd spend my weekends, running guns downfield to the rec ball players and all of those guys, and filling up hoppers, getting guns ready for parties, and doing all of that. And then they'd pay me in paintballs, and then I'd save up a couple days and go practice. And then occasionally I started stepping on the airball field against other people out there, and one guy eventually said to me, hey man, you want to come try out for my Young Guns team? And just all went from there.
And I know a lot of people out there that are playing now. They think, what if I had gotten started much younger? Or what if I had been introduced to the game earlier? I didn't start playing until 2015 when I was halfway through my freshman year in college. And the crazy thing was I lived in high school, halfway through my 4 years in high school, X Factor was built down the street from my parents' house. So I had, potentially 2+ years, and obviously there's a couple other fields in that San Antonio, New Braunfels corridor, like paintball nights, if you go up to San Marcos to Lost Paintball. But, I had a couple more years that I could have been involved in the sport, but just wasn't. So that's cool that you were able to do that just from such a young age, and it kind of the bug bit you right away.
Yeah, I'm happy about it. I'm lucky for it, I say. So
Oh, yeah. So this question is brought to us by Uno's Jerky. Head to unosjerky.com and use code PITS10. So throughout this second half of your life so far, what are some things that have changed within the Texas paintball scene, either for better or for worse over the time period?
So I'd have to say for better. I've noticed that like whenever I first stepped in, as I said, I tried out for a Young Guns team, and then right as I made the team and there were a bunch of us as kids, they were like, "Hey, there's no more Young Guns tournaments." So we were like, "All right, we're going to go play D5 then." So stepped into D5 with those guys, and I think we got something like third in a USXBL series that year. And I think my first, actually, no, I take that back. My first ever tournament was a Young Guns like HTPL, which that kind of faded away after a little bit. And then my second tournament was D4 at uh, PSP Mudfest. And then after that, it just went into playing, you know, D5. But the thing I'd really like to say, like I see now, is like places like Bunker Fest, the NXL, like all of that having like kids divisions. It's really beautiful to see, honestly, because at a time when I was playing, like there was, there was nowhere near as many kids my age playing the sport. It just wasn't really, it wasn't tailored to them. There wasn't much they could do to learn. It was hard to get in front of a professional player and learn a little bit. It was really hard to get in there. And then also the community at the time itself didn't seem really tailored to kids. My parents personally had a little battle of like, okay, do we want my kid hanging out with like, how people were at the time, which I think paintball has matured a little bit in that sense. And with all the new Young Guns divisions and the opportunities like Paintball Fit, they've done a beautiful job up there of just giving kids opportunities to learn the game, putting them into XTPLs with pro players. It's a really amazing thing to see, which I would have probably utilized as a kid to learn some myself. So
Yeah,
that's
one
the
of the
biggest thing
things
I've
that's like super crazy is like youth division made its debut. It seems like it made its return at World Cup last year. Bunkerfest has put youth 3v3 in their whole series, and like this past registration, they expanded it from 10 teams to 15 teams, and it sold out in less than 2 minutes, which is insane to me. Like there's 15 youth teams. There's not even 15 teams, I don't think, in any of the other divisions yet. And yeah, well, Division 4 X-Ball has 15 teams right now, but it's taken a couple of days for that to happen. But youth 3v3 sold out in less than 2 minutes. That's insane to me. And you've got, I know you said that it was a little bit harder to get guys like upper level guys in to help out. Like looking at some of the rosters that are uploaded already to these teams on like Bunkerfest, you've got guys like Devin Stewart, Jell Stewart, you've got Andrew Wyatt, formerly of Sacramento DMG. You've got Thomas Taylor out there with his son. Like there's so much support now for these youth division teams, and like that pathway is there. And I think everyone's just like super excited for some of these kids because like these kids can ball.
Yeah. I mean, and it's hard because whenever I was young starting out, it was hard for an older person to really grab a relationship with a kid my age, and I totally understand that. You know what I mean? And it's hard for them to be like, okay, like I'm 25 and we've got this 12-year-old not necessarily as mature, able to learn at the rate that we are right now, which that personal thing I had to work on myself. But we grew up a little bit, but being able to play with your friends also, like a group of kids your age, like it's so much. It keeps kids going, man. It gives them a drive. You see your buddy doing well on the field, then your next buddy's doing well on the field, and it makes you want to do well on the field, and it just goes from there. It's exponential.
Yeah,
So,
paintball is like one of the only sports out there that I know that's not divided by age. Like if you think about baseball, football, basketball, like all of these other more mainstream sports, they're all divided by age. And paintball, it's like for a while there, you've got like 12, 13, 14, 15-year-old kids that are going up against grown men or like with or against them. And that's just like they need their own division in order to be able to really grow and thrive. And I know at least with the NCPA, which unfortunately isn't, doing so hot right now just because of how COVID kind of shut down all of the clubs. In the NCPA rulebook, they have a separate kind of section just for high school. And something that I think would be really cool, and I think the next natural progression of this is as these kids get older, because like some of these kids that are competing in the youth division are like 12, 13 years old. They're still in middle school. And as they get into high school, it would be interesting to see if paintball ever gets to a point where it becomes like a school club thing in high schools. That would be really cool.
It would be awesome. I think as a kid going through high school, I think I maybe thought about that every day, just, for a couple minutes. But yeah, that would be pretty amazing. I know they did it for a little bit. There were a couple of select few high school teams around the country back in the day whenever NCPA was going on. They had their small event, but it never really grew any bigger than that was. It was probably the biggest that got. So.
Well, with this resurgence that we're kind of seeing right now within the sport of paintball, I wonder if that's something that's eventually going to happen. It'd be really cool to see because once we get it, in high schools, I feel like that just adds another level of legitimacy to the sport overall that we're all kind of looking for.
100%.
So you've been playing tournament paintball since you were, 12 years old?
Yeah, since I was 12 years old.
And even that very first year, you're traveling all over the country to compete in either NXL, WC, PSP. You're doing all this traveling. So what was that experience like traveling at such a young age to compete?
Yeah, it was honestly, as I say all the time, this sport really changed my life. So like, I kind of grew up in a, well-rounded community, I guess I'd say, and, great people, very supportive. But at the age of 12, I kind of just played the USXBL series, played a PSP, and then I played my first World Cup that year too in D4. Did absolutely horrendous. Like I think we got dead last. Yeah, and then after that, went and played D4 that next season with Notorious. So I was playing with like Marky Franz and a couple of those guys, and I that was the first time I was like, all right, I'm gonna step out and play these national events, and ended up my first event was out of state, was at WCPPL in California. I was in 7th grade at the time, I want to say 7th or 8th grade. No, 7th grade. Yeah, went and played WCPPL, and we placed quite well, and then went to Vegas. That was the next event, and yeah, just went from there and played out the rest of that season. Then when I was 14, that's whenever I made that bump to Diesel, and that was in 8th grade. And then so appreciate my dad for everything. Whenever I was in 8th grade, he was driving me 3.5 hours from Austin all the way up to Waxahachie, to support me and help me, allow me to do it, but Jesse Stevens and Tyler Spees would sometimes pick me up and take me for that drive to practice on the weekends, and that meant a lot to me that they did that. That was pretty amazing. But yeah, I started playing with Diesel, and then at the end of that season, the team kind of trickled off. People went their own ways. It kind of folded a little bit, and then I had met David Ramirez in California whenever I was playing on Notorious. Or no, it was in Vegas. That's whenever I met him, and he had always said, man, if you come out to California, we'll take care of you. We'll make sure you learn and you get somewhere. So I always had him as like, he would be at my matches whenever I was playing on Diesel and stuff like that. So I decided to go step out over there when I was 15. I was in 9th grade at the time, and that was, that was pretty intense, like, on my life. I didn't really realize it until COVID hit and my life paused. That was because I played football too for the school over here at Lake Travis. Played with some great players, got to practice against some great players, and I appreciate that a lot. But I also had school on top of that, so it was, Fridays I was getting out of school, hopping on a plane to Los Angeles. I'd land at LAX, and then David would either pick me up if he had the time, but obviously, you know, he has work and some other obligations within his life, and I totally understand it. And I'd hop on a bus that it felt like 5 hours after getting on off of that plane, but it was probably like an hour and a half, 2 hours occasionally. A bus from Van Nuys or to Van Nuys from LAX, and then I'd catch an Uber to his place, and then we would in the morning on Saturday morning drive all the way down to Oceanside, which was a trek. You know, it was about 2 hours or so, maybe a little less than that. I could be wrong on that.
Jeez.
Yeah, did that in the morning and then practiced, and then Sunday night I'd fly home, and then I'd be home at 11 to 1 in the morning, and then it would be football practice at 5 to 6 in the morning the next day, maybe 7 a.m., depending on if they did a late start. And I'd do that throughout the whole week, doing homework on the planes, and that was life at the time. That was my high school. So.
And I cannot imagine, like, I'm thinking, like, for reference, at the start of all this, you're in 6th grade, and I'm thinking, like, when I was in 6th grade, like, I was in band. Like, that's all I did, you know? And, like, I can't imagine, like, traveling all over the country in 7th and 8th grade to compete, not only compete in paintball, but compete at a very high level. So you jumped from competing with Notorious in Division 4, you jumped to Division 2 with Diesel. So backing up a little bit to talking about making the jump to Division 2, being at such a young age, like you're still 13, 14 years old at this point. How quickly did your game and both your mentality have to mature to be able to, like, truly belong in that division?
Yeah, honestly, I wouldn't say that I really belonged in that division for a while. My time at AC, I learned a lot, but didn't know how to use it yet. You know, they play with this thing called the system, and you know, it's a very complex, it's a very complicated form of paintball for sure, and you have to understand it very well to be successful with it. And at the age I was at, with, you know, all the distractions that come with paintball too, you know, the flashy guns, you know, my mind wasn't necessarily like right there where it needed to be. Just, you know, I'm at a young age, I'm distracted by a couple little things. I'd say so my mentality, I was still a kid when I was on Diesel. You know, I learned a lot, and it's funny because now I can look back on it and I learn things now based on what I learned as a kid that I remember, and I'm like, oh, like, this is what they mean. Like, when Greg told me to do this, like, this is actually what he meant. Like, so I pick it up more nowadays, but I'd say my mentality of the game really changed whenever I stepped into playing in California. You know, they didn't treat me like a kid. They treated me as an equal, and they really like worked on getting me like good at paintball. They really like tailored to my mind, and a lot of like the people I played with, the people that coached me. Uncle Mex was one of my coaches, and all those guys out there in California are laughing that I just said that. David Ramirez too, and there's a bunch of guys out there who, you know, they really matured me as a kid. I was able to step out of my ego of a person, which the biggest thing was as a kid, you know, playing high level paintball. Like, I'll be completely honest with you about myself, like, and that's what you have to do to, you know, grow, in my opinion. But I felt like I was kind of like, had a little bit of an ego, you know, is like faffing around with some things. I just keeping my focus off of like learning, you know, just playing paintball, going through the motions. But once I got to California, you know, they matured me as a player, and they put me in a situation, like, they'd be like, all right, cool, like, you're gonna step in front of Dynasty now, like, go play some points, like, here's the Iron Man, go get shot the piss out of by Kyle Spica. And like, you know, it humbled me, and it taught me. And then I that's where I feel like I gained that little spark, that little like fire inside of me that said, nah, like, I'm gonna go stick that pro player, I'm gonna run down the field and try and prove myself. And it wasn't until California that I really feel like I belonged in that division. So that was pretty. That
Gotcha.
was awesome. I appreciate
Yeah,
that.
I know, like, when you went to California, like you had already been playing Division two with Diesel, and I know
Yeah.
you stepped down to Division three for like kind of stepping back and forth between Division two and Division three, and you found a lot of success in Division three, winning a couple of events in there. So with these teams that you were playing on at this higher level, what roles were you fulfilling? Like, were you just that missile, or did you find yourself playing more like the back spots and commanding and controlling a little bit, or what roles were you playing?
I was that missile. I was the young fast kid. Like, there's some video on YouTube somewhere too, which is hilarious. And like, there was an event I wasn't playing the layout too well, and I stand on that end of the box, and you hear someone go, "Oh, the fast kid's on the box." Like, that's just what I was. It was like, "Hey, Cal, you're gonna book it to the Dorito 50 now," and I'm just thinking, "All right, like hopefully there's not a dip in there." And it was casual to me. It was normal, but as my time progressed, and then once I got onto Mutiny and started playing over there for a little bit, I I really started getting the opportunity to not be just the missile, because in high level paintball, to be successful, as not that I've had success in the semi-pro division yet, which I'm looking to earn that with my current family and friends right now, but yeah, you can't just be a missile if you want to be an asset to your team. You have to really dig in and understand the game, and it was me understanding how the game is played like chess, and it took me a minute to really understand that, and you'll never 100% understand it, and I'm still working on that myself. But yeah, it took a minute to kind of grasp, get out of the missile role,
Yeah, one
play
question that I
paintball.
kind of have for you, somewhat similar to how Nathan Roberts and his journey coming up as far as like his role on the team and also his age. So
Yeah.
when Nathan was coming up with AC Dallas and first earning the pro spot back in 2014, 2015, the their strategy was just, hey, Nathan gets in the snake and then he gets joystick by Greg Pauley on the sideline. Like, how big
Yeah.
of a role was sideline coaching as far as your game at that time, and what was it like once it went away?
Like, I only played one season of 12-5 and sideline coaching, so I never actually got to really experience that to the full extent that it was. It was, I was put in a lot of positions while I was playing as a kid that was like, here, we're going to put a really good player behind you, and they're going to joystick you on the field. So I feel like the game kind of shifted in that way. So when I went to Mutiny, it was either Dave Ramirez or Andy Horvath or Josh Nevius just joysticking me, the little fast kid, up the field at the time. Or, Mark Johnson came and played with us at WCPPL while I was playing with Violence before. And, I had a lot of higher level players really joysticking me on the field as opposed to the sideline coaching, which I appreciate a lot more because I feel like I learned a lot more from that, if I had to say so myself.
Gotcha. Yeah. So, kind of moving forward to your next team, I know you mentioned landing with LA Collision when you started flying out to California. So, this question is brought to us by BEMRAP. So, in 2018, you're like what, eighth grade, ninth grade? You left your Texas roots. You left Texas completely to go compete in California. And I know you mentioned that what was it, David Ramirez was his name again? Or
David Ramirez,
David
yeah.
Ramirez, who had already been kind of keeping his eye on you. He was with LA Collision. You just kind of naturally landed over there. So, Mike, I guess my question for you is like, why California specifically? Was it just because of that relationship with David Ramirez, or was there like kind of an allure as far as the level of competition over there, or what was it that made it like that decision to go to California versus staying in Texas or going somewhere else?
Yeah, well, at the time I saw, like, in Texas, paintball was like quite expensive, and it kind of still is a little bit. There's going, like, the other day I went to a field and I paid $90 for a case and entry. Like, that's actually insane. I shouldn't be playing paintball because I currently have a broken collarbone, but it baffled me. And that's exactly how it was when I was younger, and I was seeing people post like, "Oh yeah, we just shot 60, 70 cases this weekend, like we're going into the event." And I was thinking to myself, like, that's crazy. Like, the amount you could learn if me and my team had 70K like that. There's a lot going on there. And then also the opportunities, they did quite well with, Mike Hinman too is a part of this, and they did quite well at like setting up practice days with high level teams and lower level teams, and having players like Uncle Max and David coaching me like on a regular basis while I was out there. And it was so beneficial. It was like it felt like practically unlimited paint at that point, and I still, we'd run out of paint and it wouldn't feel like enough. It still wouldn't feel like enough paint. So the allure over there was really the level of competition I got to play against, and how much paintball I could play against them in a weekend, because California, the fields and the paint companies, Mike was running APX at the time, and he was very generous with the community out there, and great paint too. And it was, it gave me the opportunity to learn a lot, because I always was told, you need to play as much paintball as you can to get better. And ultimately, Cali at the time was the place that allowed me to do that.
Yeah, finances are a huge part of that equation. I guess it really just comes down to accessibility. When you're only paying not nearly as much per case, let's throw a number out there. Let's say like, $25-$30 a case. That makes a big difference versus paying $60 here in Texas, or even higher potentially.
Yeah.
So,
well,
yeah.
If I can add, like, that's for, the kids coming into the sport too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's a lot of kids that probably are sitting there at home watching tournament paintball on their computers saying, like, I dream of playing the sport, but there's no way their parents can pay $70-$80 a weekend with the, life situation that they're in. And I'm fortunate that my parents were able to support me on that, and I'm very thankful for it. I will always be super thankful for it, but I feel it all the time, like, just knowing that there's kids that can't afford to do that like that, and it hurts. But in California, I could see that there were a bit more out there than out in Texas at the time, because it was a bit more viable. It was, and they were getting good too, which, in the long run helps them out.
For sure.
So,
yeah, one thing that I guess it's a little bit difficult to compare paintball to some of these other more mainstream sports where, like, all you need, for example, might be a ball and a goal or a public course or whatever to be able to play. But it is expensive to compete in paintball. Like, the closest thing, at least in my mind, and anybody out there listening can maybe offer a better example, but the closest thing that I can think of would be like racing, like kart racing. As far as the constant expenses, like watching Drive to Survive, for example, and seeing the drivers come up through F3 and F2 to eventually get into F1, like having the constant expenses of like tires and fuel, that would be more so like what I'm thinking of as far as the expenses, like compared to paint, because paint is very, very expensive, and it adds up very quickly when you're shooting, 30, 40, 50, 100 cases a weekend. To be able to compete at the top level. And I mean, it might, maybe, I also know that paint prices have gone way down over the last, 10, 20, 30 years, but I know at the same time, it's like, hey, we want to grow the sport. That is a barrier to entry right there.
Exactly.
So
I'd have to agree with you.
Yeah, for sure. So this next question, making the jump to D1, and I know you originally landed with Mutiny. So being 15 or 16 years old, tell us, like, how was that experience being at such a young age and joining such a like storied organization?
Yeah, so I originally met the guys in Vegas when I originally met David Ramirez, as I said earlier, and like instantly then, whenever like he gave me the opportunity to come play out in California, like he was currently playing on Mutiny at the time, and I had always I loved all the guys on Mutiny. They were always super supportive of me as a kid whenever I was playing my matches, and so mentally, my goal was I'm going to play on Mutiny. I'm going to do everything in my power to work and learn and get myself on that team. I don't care what it is. And I'm like 15, 16 years old. And, this is a team of like original Los Angeles Collision and Miami Rage and some like original Indianapolis Mutiny players such as Jason McDonald and, Andy Horvath. Tommy O'Donnell was still around a little bit while I was there. So I said I'm going to work as hard as I can to get on that team. And then one day Collision said, we're not going to go play this event before like a couple weeks before layout weekend. So I texted Mutiny. I said, hey, give me an opportunity. Let me come out to practice with you. Give me a shot. Like, let me get a chance. They said, all right, come out. And I played like a couple points that weekend. I think like 2 or 3 max. And then Aaron Tholey, he ran Vintage at the time, played with those guys. Great group of guys themselves. Aaron Tholey said, hey, man, why don't you come play with Vintage for like kind of the rest of the season a little bit? And then played with them. And then at the end of the season, coming into like next year after Vegas, Mutiny was like, all right, well, they had just won World Cup too. Like they had just gotten second in the series by like a hair behind Aftermath.
That was like a quarter of a point or something, like something crazy.
Yeah, it was a phenomenal season to watch, man. And Joey Blute ran that team very well at the time. And so I was just so driven to be a part of that. And one day after Vegas, they texted me and said, hey, like I was on the bus on the way to a rugby game. And I get a call from Tommy O'Donnell, and he's like, hey, man, you ready to play for Mutiny? I was like, what? Like, no way. Like, I was, I think, 16 at the time. I got that call, and I was like, I'm ready. I'll be there. Where do you need me? So, it was instantly, I think we were in California playing against the Ironmen, and it went from there. And, I appreciate that so much because that was the first time that they really put me in front of pro players consistently. Like that's where I got my reps, where I learned like really high level paintball, where I really got to dig into the mind game of it and be a part of a successful organization and learn how things really like work, if that makes sense. So we got to play against like Uprising, Dynasty, the Ironmen, Damage. Like we usually split it between one weekend against the Ironmen and one weekend against Damage out in Florida and Tampa Bay. So that was I wouldn't give it for the world. It gave me so many opportunities, and playing against players like Jason Edwards and Kyle Spica was on the Ironman at the time. That's who I was like jousting with like most practice. I actually have a scar on this dude's hand. I still blame him for that. Yeah, no, that was it. I wouldn't give it for it. And then whenever we played Dynasty, I can just vividly remember me like maybe shooting one person the whole weekend and just getting stuck in the side of the head by A-Rod like every other point. But it taught me something. It really gave me a deep, in-depth look at how the sport is really gonna work at a high level. So that's how that went. And then coming to Vegas the next year, they had brought in new coaching staff who said he had made the decision that didn't want me to play with them anymore. And then went from there and, got in a conversation with him a little bit. Hey, man, would you like to come back? And I made the decision, no, I'm going to take my own path now and going to try and figure this out my own route. But I appreciate y'all for everything. And I still appreciate them for everything. So
yeah, I'd love to get into kind of your next steps there. I'm looking at the chat right now. Justin Deere says there's just our conversation about going to play in California. He says there's a lot less ego in California paintball compared to Texas. That's that's a destination that I want to be able to get to eventually. I know that a lot of players, a lot of teams over there in California, so much bigger market, or at least at this point in time. I feel like Texas has that potential to be even bigger eventually. Let's see what else is in the chat. JC Lamont, who's the owner of Uno's Jerky, he says when he was in 6th grade, he was still telling people to spell iCup. So let's see. Yeah, Chris Isaacs saying golf would be close to the same as far as the barrier to entry and expenses. Yeah, I
Yeah.
could see that. Then Jim Whitmer says something that I think we'll get to here in a little bit. So this next question is brought to us by Paintball Kumite, which is Colt Roberts' training regimen. You eventually, after your time with Mutiny, you swapped over to the KC Missouri Allstars for the 2022 season, which was this past year. You dropped back down to D2 and you won the series. So how was that season for you?
I mean, ultimately, that was the best decision I've ever made. That playing with this team currently, it I guess I'll start from the beginning. So I went to play with Plum Life at World Cup. They held a big tryout. It was a tryout for the KC Missouri Allstars and for
Mm.
Plum Life. They both held it. It was interesting. And I spoke to Leon Wunsch, our current coach. Him and Andrew Slade at the time, they invited me to come out and try out for Plum Life, and I went out there, and then both teams said, "All right, now you have to decide between us." I was like, "Whoa!" Like, I didn't know I had to make a decision here. I'm just trying to join a paintball team at this point, and I felt like pretty horrible because I wanted to play with Plum or with the KC All Stars at the time. I could see they really were a driven group of guys. Some people were kind of in and out on Plum Life at the time, and they were trying to rebuild. But KC was put together in like a strong core that had been together for a long time, which was something I really hadn't been able to play for before, and I really envied it. And but out of the sole respect and the person I am, I'm not gonna. I'm really not gonna say, hey, later to the guys that invited me to come here and then go join the other team. So I said, no, I have to play with Plum Life just out of the sole respect that they invited me here. Like, I appreciate everything. And Todd's like, come on, man. Like, I promise you, we will win. I promise you we will win. It's like, I know. Like, I just have to do this. I feel so bad not doing it. And he said to me, like, bro, sometimes you just have to do what's right for you. And unfortunately, I didn't do that. I said, no, I have to stick with Plum Life. So, and then coming into Vegas, Plum Life was like, okay, we're not going to actually play. And then here I am, like, dude, I'm going to text Todd. I'm going to see what goes on here. I call Todd and I go, hey, man, by chance, is there a spot on the roster for me to play with y'all? And he said something like, I told you, bro. I told you, bro. And then I ended the phone call and added me to the chat. And he hasn't lied to me yet. We won. That was a really big thing for me. I think as a kid, I found a lot of my successes in WCPPL, playing over there with the violence and collision guys. Um, but I really, really wanted to like make my way up in the main stage in the NXL, and he promised me that, and he's the first one that's ever held up to that promise in the NXL for me. So I'll follow him until this ship dies. But yeah, so we went into the first event, played with, we got placed fourth. Yeah, our Mac Dev paintball guns didn't help us at all with that going into the finals. Yeah, so we placed fourth there, and then we went on to, what was the next event after that? Was that Texas after that?
Think so. The
Yeah,
minor.
yeah, the Texas minor was the next one after that, and yeah, we won that one. I had just gotten done with my pledgeship for my fraternity, so it was I was going through a lot of work with that, and then got out and won an event with my new group of like friends, which I more or less consider a family, in my own home state, which was it was beautiful to me at the that really rocked my emotions, but like I had to collect myself and be like, job's not done, like it, because it's not. We have a whole season to go. We Leverage was a phenomenal paintball team at the time in that division, and I mean they're still a great team. They're doing well in semi-pro right now, for better than us actually. Great guys. Um, yeah, so we went in to do fourth, third, a second, and a first. Um, Yeah, it was definitely interesting because going into Chicago, they got I there was an incident which I'm not gonna really go into, but I got shot in the eye with a paintball gun, and I was completely blind at the time. And then in that eye, and then come World Cup time, I was able. It was the weekend before Chicago that happened, and then boys pulled through as I knew they would, as always. Not that I'm saying I'm a big thing there, but yeah, no. Coming into Cup, I had my last eye appointment on the first layout practice weekend, so I couldn't miss that. We're coming into World Cup about to win the series. We're very promising team to look like we're going to win the event. Like, I was not going to give it up for anything. So I was, my eye was still a little bit like fuzzy, not necessarily completely healed yet. And first practice back, I'm running and gunning, going into the corner. I run into a bunker because I didn't kind of realize I had lost some peripheral vision at the time, and it's coming back now. But at the time, my peripheral vision wasn't all the way back, and smacked into a bunker and came down on a bunker weight, and it cut my leg pretty deep open, like straight through. And that was like, I remember I cut my leg open. We were playing against some D5 guys. Went through. We ended the point, and then I went in to get some pods. My leg was really hurting, and I felt my pant leg, and it was like wet. And I was like, no way. So I like pull my pants down, and I check my leg, and it's a deep cut, man, about that long first weekend back. And I just remember I screamed at the top of my lungs like a very vulgar word. I'll try and be PG on here. And screamed a very vulgar word because like I looked at it and I thought, no way. No, there's no way. There's no way I'm not going to be able to play this event. Like it really rocked me. That night we went home, super glued it together, put some gauze on it, and wrapped a bandage around it. I sat out the next day of practice to let it heal, and then kind of relaxed through the school week that week because I currently go to Texas Tech, so I'm doing school in the middle of all of this. And we get back out there for the next weekend. I just put the gauze on it, bandaged it up, played that whole practice weekend, and then came out to World Cup. And we placed second there, which, like, man, that was like the most painful thing. It was so painful because we knew what we were capable of. We know who we are. Like, there's not this. Our team is a unit, unlike so many organizations I've played for. It's like every single person on this team is such good friends with each and every one of each other, and we play all 10 bodies. Everybody goes out there, and you're so confident in every guy that's next to you. Like, you're never not confident in the line that's out on the field with you. And that's like, we knew we could have won that event. We knew that. And I guess that's kind of that's what rocked me a little bit. I know it probably rocked some of the others, but came out with a great season. And but mind forward, you got to look forward to it. And we came into this season, and yeah, this was our first semi-pro season together up here. And I had played a little bit up here, but I can't say that I want to say I was mentally probably in the exact same boat as them. They talked a little bit about, like, some of us have played semi-pro before, so we're gonna play off of your knowledge. But at the time, I hadn't really been too successful in that division, so I'm like in the same boat as them. Like, we got to learn together, and we got to learn fast, and we got to learn faster than other people are learning. So ultimately, we missed Sunday by like 1 point each event. Um, and then coming into the second event, I guess we missed that, and I had broken my collarbone prior to that. So, but yeah, I really wouldn't rather play with any other group of guys. Like, I'll be playing with them until it's not possible anymore. So,
yeah, I mean, that's injuries are tough. I know exactly what you're talking about there with getting injured and having to miss events. Like at pretty much at the start of last season, I had this bad back injury where I have these disc hernias in my back, to the point where I could barely walk.
Yeah.
And so I had to miss 4 events last season, one of which being the NXL event in Dallas, the minor, which the Texas Titans had won the previous year in D4 5-man, and we were going to go play in D4 X ball. And so I ended up coaching for that event. Barely, I couldn't even carry a case of paint. It was that bad.
Wow.
And dude, injuries suck, especially when you're just there watching and knowing I guess I'll try to do everything that I can do, but
yeah.
Man, it's...
Well, I guess I have to say, for me, one of the most painful moments about, so I broke my collarbone right before the Austin event in my hometown. I'm from here. My new family's, coming down here to meet my actual family, and it's, it was a very big, event for me as a person, just because it had never been held in my hometown before, and I broke my collarbone before that, and there was just a point where Todd looked at me and he said, "This is you. This is where we need you, man." In the middle of the match, going into a point, and that, the way that settled with me was I don't want to feel that way again. I don't. I'm there's so much I'm gonna have to do, because I like to be crazy and adventure and do exotic crap all the time, just because it's fun. I like to experience the world and all of that, but realistically, I do have to be more careful, and for my friends and my parents and all of that. And
I know
I felt that more than anything.
All these guys that get injured, they never get injured on the paintball field. They very rarely do. It's always outside things that happen that ends up taking us off the field. For me, it was moving either a treadmill or a piano at my parents' house when they were renovating and getting new hardwood floors. What was the injury that caused you to miss so much time on the field?
So this was a collarbone injury. This is probably the longest injury I will have had, and probably the biggest regret I have had. I went out. Good old Marky Franz gave me a text one night. I live in Lubbock, so that's he lives in San Antonio, so it's kind of on the way to Taos in New Mexico. Him and Sebastian Paul, my guy that plays D4 with the Notorious guys. They threw me a text, "Hey man, want to be at the ski lift by 9 a.m. tomorrow?" or something like that. I was like, it was the weekend before the first practice, 2 weeks before the event. So I was like, man, let's do it. Let's go. Let's have some fun. He's like, all right. So I'm going to drive up to Lubbock. We'll post up at your spot we'll have 3 hours sleep, and we'll head out at 4 or 5 in the morning or whatever it was we decided to do. And then drove into New Mexico, which was great time with my friends, driving on up there. And then we get to the top of the mountain and we're coming down. It's late in the season. It's the last run of the season. Sebi, he hurt himself a little bit, so we were like, all right, let's take it easy. Let's get to the bottom of the mountain. Let's get some food in us, because we hadn't eaten. We had, just grabbed some drinks from the gas station, filled up on gas, just tried to get there by the time the lift's open, because I'm an avid snowboarder myself. You want to have the full day, the full capacity to do it. So I was on board with that completely. And Sebi got himself hurt trying to do a jump, and then we were like, all right, let's take it easy. Let's get to the bottom of the mountain. And I was just riding normal, just casually, and it was on my toe side, and I had my lens. My lens was fogging up, so I had it in my right hand, and I went to do a little turn and caught some ice, and then once I flipped into the ground, I was like, oh, I don't want to smash my lens in, so I raised my right arm up, which brought my left shoulder just straight into the ground. And then I'm sitting there yeah, that doesn't feel right. Marky's like, bro, come on, let's go down the mountain, dude. Come on, what are you doing? I was like, nah, dude, think something's actually wrong. And he's like, nah, bro, we'll just go down there. We'll get some food. It'll be good. I'm like, no, something's kind of clicking in here, dude. It does not feel normal. And so we rode all the way to the bottom of the mountain, went and got food, I'm sitting there eating mac and cheese or something, just oh, this is not okay. I could just feel it. It was in pain. So I went over to the ski patrol building, and they told me the like worst news that like I ever received, honestly. Just right before that Austin event in my hometown for the first time, as I've been saying, I'm playing a little over a decade now. You know, that was rough. That was my dream to play an event in my hometown, and didn't get to do it. But
And
it is what it is. You live and you learn.
Yeah, and I hate to say that I have somewhat of a similar story there. I know Justin Deer's in the chat saying tell the bike story. So last summer, so I had gone through my back injury for a couple of months from like beginning of March all the way through like May. And eventually it's like, all right, we're just going to go with the spinal injection because, you know, none of the physical therapy is working. Spinal injection like makes all the pain go away. I have full range of motion and everything. And I'm able to start playing again. So we have this event end of July or probably beginning or middle of July over in Houston. So I'm like, all right, this is going to be my first event where I actually have my full range of motion back. I'm able to play at full capacity and all that. The day before we're supposed to leave for Houston, I'm riding my bike and I hit this pothole and we're heading down hills. And so when I hit the pothole, instead of like crashing sideways, I flip forward over my bike and land on my face. And that's we exchanged pictures before, but like,
yeah,
and that's where, if you're watching the video, that's where the scar came from right here on my eye. But I was concerned that there was something wrong with my eye. And I was like,
concerning feeling. It really is a concerning feeling. I understand you on that.
Yeah,
I'm
I think
glad you got out of that okay.
Going to the emergency room, they said that I was like, I want to say like 2 or 3 millimeters away from needing a plastic surgeon because it barely missed my eyelid just by that much. Which, you know, that's the difference between like wearing a helmet or not wearing a helmet. Cause like I have the helmet over in the next room and there's like a big chunk missing on the side. So like, you know, that could have gone, you know, as bad as it could have gone very differently in a much worse direction. But I end up missing the event because in the emergency room, they're like, you know what, just as a precaution, we're going to give you a tetanus shot and, you know, some other shots. And I'm like, all right, well, it is now Saturday and, you know, my body is at 106 degrees. So I'm not going anywhere. So,
man, that's rough. I'm glad you came out of that safe though.
Yeah. It was
just got to be thankful for the little things, honestly. Right.
And if you go back to the archive here for the In the Pits episodes, if you go back to episode 1, it's like, I think episode 1 with Colt Roberts was right before that accident. And then if you look at episode 3 or episode 4, I've got all of this and you can see the timeline there because it's just under a year at this point.
Episodes are just like a time lapse of recovery.
Yeah.
You know? Back starting at 1, I'm gonna go all the way through them now.
Oh yeah, so it's like I'm finally recovering from the back stuff, and then this happens, and I miss a 4th event that year. So for me, recovery is, at least with the back stuff, like the eye stuff's pretty much it is how it is at this point, but you know, back stuff's pretty much ongoing. How's the recovery going for you? What's the timetable looking like?
So I should have an X-ray next week, which will tell me more about right before I left school, which is about a month ago now, I'll say. He told me about 3-4 months, and that was awful to hear. I was not ready for that, because I walked into the office on my second checkup and I was like, look, man, I could put my arm up, like just hoping that he's like, can your arm move? I'm like, yeah. I'm like doing windmills in the office. Like, please, man, please tell me everything's gonna be okay. Like, I'll be able to play, please. And he was like, yeah, you can get into some light workouts and you're healing well, but we're gonna need to give it a little bit. And I was like, how long? And he's like, so you're asking me how long? What sport do you play? And I was like, okay, dude, this is gonna sound crazy. This is gonna sound crazy, so I'm just gonna show you a video. And I showed him a video of me like diving and stuff like that, because ultimately that's kind of really what he needed to see to really get a gist of it. And he was like, got a minute, buddy. He got a little bit of time to go. And I was like, it just didn't want to hear that at all. But it's it's been important to me, you know, that I get myself back to 100%. I did actually wake up like freaking out the other day, like, man, I have to play paintball. I have to play paintball. And someone was like, hey, man, I'm headed to the paintball field. And there was nothing I could do to say no. Like, last week, I shouldn't have done this. Bad idea. 2 weeks ago, went out and played some rec ball. And because I had to get the gun in my hand, I felt it inside of me. It wasn't like I just can't be away from paintball, man. It hurts to do. So I went out there and played a couple rec ball games, and you know I apologize to the rec ball kids out there that day. I was just, you know, I was trying to be friendly, you know, but
Trying to
you know,
make
I
up for
played
lost time.
yeah, trying to, but
Mm.
I mean, I wasn't doing anything too crazy, but you know, I was playing some paintball, having some fun, and you know, I played 4 points, and then my shoulder was, you know, a little bit
Mm.
sore, you know, and it hasn't been sore. It's not sore currently, but once I felt that, I was like, you know, like he's right. He's right. This is me making another dumb decision that's gonna hurt myself. I have to stop now. So I stopped, gave my buddy like one of my bags of paint so he could keep going, and obviously saved like the rest of my bags of paint so I can go out there and do drills in a couple weeks. Hopefully, whenever they say, yeah, you could get into doing some drills and stuff. So, but yeah, so recovery's been good. I've been just trying to, you know, with paintball being a lot of time in my life, I've been trying to utilize the moment to succeed in life right now. I've been, you know, getting certifications to do multiple jobs and, you know, taking an online college course, you know, to catch up with some things and, you know, just trying to, because ultimately, if my life isn't going in the right direction, paintball won't be a thing for me. So
Mm.
I've been trying to make that such a priority while I have this time, but also stay really, really adamant on my fitness. So I've been running 2 miles a morning every day, and then I will do core every day also, and then I'll do legs one day, not do legs the next day, legs one day, because you know you can't do same muscle every single day.
Right.
That's not how that works. But if I could, I would be doing legs every day because you know I feel like I'm shorting myself in the gym. It's just a feeling. I don't like it, you know. So, but yeah, recovery's been going well, and we're here just trying to soak in all the experience I'm getting in other places right now, which I really appreciate. So
Well,
it's been awesome.
I mean, good on you for making the best use of your time. I know that everybody misses having you back on the field, but at the same
Appreciate
time,
that.
it's like the fastest way to mess yourself up is to come back too soon, because that's how
Yes.
you extend your timetable by another several months, or possibly, you know, do some irreversible damage to yourself. So, you know,
Definitely.
as much as it sucks, and I mean, you know that I'm right there with you as far as the experience. Like, just, you know, be patient,
Yeah.
and once you make your full recovery, then yeah, then we'll have you back out on the field when you are 100%. So I see a
Yep.
lot of people in the chat right here putting some stuff in there. I love the comments. If you want to ask Kal a question, be sure to get your questions in the chat. We'll kind of get to them kind of sporadically throughout the show. I'm trying something a little bit different. Instead of putting them all at the end, we'll get to them kind of as they're relevant. So next question. Over your, 8 years of playing tournaments, who have been some of the people that have helped you along the way?
All right, I'll have to go chronologically here. So it started out, you know, whenever I first started playing Jared Sherman. You know, we'd be out there in the freezing cold at Outlaw Paintball snapping. He'd put cones on the floor, and I'd be sliding in a square, you know, for pretty decent amount of time until I got it down. And he was teaching. He kind of built the fundamentals inside of me, which is pretty cool. I appreciate him for that a lot. And then gradually it turned into Tyler Spees once I was playing Division 4. He was a big asset to my game at the time, and then Jesse Stevens kind of added into that. And then once I went and played on Diesel, Jesse and Tyler just became even more of an asset for me as a kid. So they definitely helped build the beginning stages of my paintball career. Um, After that, I definitely have to say, like, I owe, like, besides my parents, obviously, most amazing people and supportive people in the world, but besides my parents, Dave Ramirez, obviously, I do a lot of this for him too. You know, he's supported me like more than anything. Gave me the opportunities to play high level paintball, put me in front of pro players to play against them. Told me, you know, don't be soft. Like, go mess that guy up. You know what I mean? Like, he gave me the courage to do that. So he basically he did a lot for me there. He was the one who gave like kind of he vouched for me to go on to Mutiny, and he brought me into that whole community with like Vintage, the Violence Camp. Like every single WCPPL, he's always hit me up. Which, by the way, WCPPL, like probably where I was able to grow the most. But like yeah, within the Violence team, the players he brought on to play with us, and the players we got to play against at the time, like learned a lot from him. Yeah, and then I I guess I have to say now, Todd for giving me the opportunity and the support he gives our team. The Kansas City, Missouri, or the KC Sports Complex. The field is beautiful. It's phenomenal. And if you guys don't know, he supports this field for our community in paintball. So he like that field has just been our home field, and he takes care of that for us and does all the background work for our team and keeps giving us more opportunities to just play against each other, play more paintball, gives us great deals on like loving the Defy paint right now. It's awesome. So we're shooting great paint at a great price, and he's really been supportive for me within these recent times. So I appreciate him a lot for that too. So, and then, you know, I gotta say, my dad and my mom too. Like that, you know, you can't beat that. They've always been my biggest supporters, no matter where I was, what I was doing, how I was playing paintball. So,
I mean, shoot, flying you out to California for weekend practices at the age of what, 13, 14 years old? Man.
oh, you know, it took it was 15 that I first flew out there, and that, you know, it took. You know, I also, when I was 15, played up in Canada. Ben Challenger's always been a good buddy of mine. I went up and stayed there for 10 days with him. But, you know, at the age of 15, like, my parents had to kind of be like, what? Okay, so, like, who are you staying with? Like, they put me on a plane, and then I get a phone call once I landed at an airport. So, whose house are you staying at? Like, where are you going? You know, and I'm like, oh, you know, I got a buddy picking me up at the airport, and like, you know, at the time I was like, Mom, Dad, I'm okay, like I'm fine. And now I look back on it, I'm like, thank God they trusted me. But wow, that was bold on them. But I mean, I appreciate that more than anything. It grew me as a person.
For sure. And I think that speaks to the character of a lot of people in paintball. There's a lot of awesome people in paintball, and especially some of the names like of the Texas individuals that helped you along the way. They've helped a lot of us. Like Jared Sherman, first name that you listed. Like when I first was after my time with NCPA, and I was looking to start like getting involved like 2019, 2020, you know, I was 40 pounds heavier than I am now. And Jared Sherman was the first one that kind of helped me along the weight loss journey. And then a couple months after that was on that first team, the I-35 All-Stars, that helped me get my first win in X-Ball. So like Jared Sherman's huge in this scene. He's helped a lot of people, including myself. So shout out to you, Jared. You know, Jesse Stevens, constantly inviting like a bunch of us out, you know, to go drill with him or do practice sessions with him. I think I'm actually going to go with him tomorrow to do some drills and learn this new layout. Yeah, Jesse's huge for this area of paintball as well. Like just so many excellent people in paintball, and yeah, it's great to be a part of.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. Like it's now it's beautiful because these pros are, as you said, saying, "Hey, come drill with me. Come do some drills." Like that's the best opportunity you can get. You know, like just high level players giving you their time, and you got to learn. As long as you can be a sponge around those people, that's where you'll learn the most. And you know, getting your head kicked in by them also, that taught me miles.
For sure. And anybody listening out there, like if you have one of those high level individuals, either player or coach in your area, like don't be afraid to go up and ask them for things. Like either ask them for tips or maybe do one-on-ones with them or whatever, like ask them questions about the layout. Like all of these individuals remember what it was like when they were first coming up. And they also remember the individuals that helped them along the way. And they are more than happy to pay that forward or pay that back to the community. So, I encourage you, go up, introduce yourself, and, make those connections with those. So, this next question is brought to us by FUAthletics. Go to thefuathletics.com, use code inthepits25 for 25% off of your order. So throughout your paintball career, do you have a single favorite moment so far?
I have two for I probably have three. I have three for different reasons. When I first won that event at WCPPL, it was my first event I won, and it was under Collision, a name I had wanted to play for a long time as I was a kid. We went in there, first event. I was able to get a decent amount of points in during that time, and we won the event, and I was ecstatic to be a part of that, to be a part of the win for that name because I had looked up to it for so long. And then obviously the next one was the win in Texas. That spoke miles to me because that was a win in my hometown with the greatest group of guys, or not hometown, sorry, home state, but with the greatest group of guys, and that was awesome. That you could feel that. You could feel the win in you. We were just stepping out there and it just felt like we were just going through the motions and just like being ourselves together, and it was the most fluid, comfortable paintball event of my life. It was unreal. But then the next moment, which I had to say was another favorite of mine for another reason, was getting second at Cup. Solely because I could feel like what sat inside of me, and we lost that match horrendously in the finals. I have to think about it because it taught me so much. Like, man, you have to be able to go to the end. You have to be able to just push through all hours of the day, and every single guy on that roster has to be on point and together. Like, you just learn so much. Like, no matter how confident you are, you have to know the motions. You have to know the game, and no one can drop. And it was, that right there. It was a favorite moment of mine because I learned. I sat there and I looked back at the season at the time and I learned. I felt it. So I was very appreciative to be able to experience that, because just that sparks another fire in my mind and probably the rest of and the team itself too. So that probably still sits with a lot of us, and we know we can use what we learned from that to our advantage to keep us going right now.
For sure. And there's, your favorite moment. How about some of your favorite players to play with?
There's a lot of just characters, man. Great people. That's the thing I have to say I valued most about traveling as a kid in high school and, the later stages of middle school was being able to go stay and play with all races, ethnicities, cultures, religion, all of it, and stay with their families and their homes. So, like, I'll say a couple here, but like I won't be able to touch on every single one of them. I value playing with so many people out there, and I appreciate that a lot. But I'd have to say I really enjoyed playing paintball with, obviously I've said his name a million times, but David, and then the Jits guys, great group of friends of mine. All those guys were, kind of, it was the first time I really played with a bunch of people around my age. It was pretty cool, so I appreciated that. The awesome, fun dudes. Yeah, and then some specific players, let's think. On Diesel, I played with Nick Myers, and I'm still good friends with him today. That was awesome. I also played with the Caprock Cavalry guys, and Jake Kennedy, Matt Griffith, all those guys, great friends of mine. They were good fun to play paintball with. On Mutiny, Josh Nevius, that's a very notable one. He was that guy. I can't even describe what that guy is, or like he's awesome. He's just great. He's character, like phenomenal paintball player when he wants to be. And he's doing his life now, so proud of him. And yeah, he was a great one to play with. Andy Horvath, Jason McDonald, that whole couple guys from over there. Someone I really appreciated was Jerry. Jerry was coaching us on Mutiny, and he was the one who was like, "Hey, you want to play paintball? Prove it to me." And he really worked with me to get me, put on the field playing high level paintball too, like for the team. So I appreciate Jerry a lot for that. But those are just a couple names. But man, I could name so many people that I appreciate that have helped me and pick me up from airports at ungodly hours of the evening. And yeah, so I'll just have to go from there.
For sure. Yeah. So looking at the chat, now's y'all's last chance to get in. Any questions before we get to the end of our show? So moving forward and looking ahead, this question's brought to us by Hydra. So the KC Missouri Allstars, they are not signed up for Philadelphia. So are y'all making a plan to return later this year, or what's up for the rest of the season?
So, there was I'm injured, and that doesn't really hold it all back, obviously, because they're more than capable, of course. Todd Boyer, congratulations to him. He's expecting his next child here soon during around that time. So, it's a hard time for him. And with how we've placed, we're not necessarily in the running for winning the series, and it's quite an expensive event to get to. There's a couple other little just like background things, nothing crucial to the team at all. Just like, some stuff we got to figure out and just put together a little bit before, we go for that full run. But what I will say is that they've made the decision to play WCPPL, to go and step into the Premier Division and play one of those WCPPLs instead of Philly, which I'm super excited to watch them play because that was an event that I loved a lot myself. I found Mike Hinman runs it amazingly, and I learned a lot over there. And I'm excited to see them go, play against a bunch of people that I grew up playing against, and they'll get to experience some of the things I experienced playing over there. So and I feel like they'll do great. They'll do awesome. So I'm proud of them with that. But I wish I could be there so bad, but they'll do great at that. It'll be awesome.
For sure. I mean, glad to hear that y'all aren't just hanging it up for the rest of the season. Y'all are still playing. Yeah.
Never.
I mean, WC is definitely a good event. I'm excited that Mike Hinman just purchased the USXBL, and we're actually going to get to have him on the show in 2 weeks. So get to chat with him. I know he's been doing a lot of different podcasts. Like he's been on Play the Game. I think one of the guys from Greed had him on earlier this week. I think yesterday morning, actually. I think, was it Robert Jordan interviewed him from Greed? And then I know he's just talked to Paintball Nerd as well. So hopefully I'm not going to double dip on too many questions that he's already answered, give him a little bit of variety.
Yeah.
But yeah, some exciting things that are happening in Texas. So let's see, looking in the chat real quick, from Brandon Ortega from Bem Raps, he asks, do you have a favorite Texas pro player?
Favorite Texas pro player? That's a hard one. I'm gonna. I don't want him to hear this, but if he hears it, so be it. But it's gonna have to be Jesse. Jesse, he supported me a lot as a kid, man, and he those 3-hour drives with an annoying 15-year-old aren't always easy, me so like, and he would just spew on with paintball about me, teaching me about the old days while I was younger. And while I was at the field, Greg at the time kind of made him like, he was kind of like, Jesse, that's your job, like you got to take care of that. And he taught me a bit. Like he'd invite me like before the ultimate shootout, I would go out to X Factor and me and him would drill like beforehand, and in the recent years it's been hard for me to get out and go drill with him and stuff like that, and probably still need to reach out again. But yeah, it's been hard with college and stuff like that. But I'd have to say Jesse. I like watching him succeed because I watched where he kind of came from. I watched his growth coming from semi-pro diesel into the pro team and then over to X Factor. So I enjoy watching him be successful for sure.
For sure. Shout out to Jesse. Let's see other people on the chat. See a bunch of people giving out love. I'll just call them by name real quick. Skull Monkeys Paintball, one of the new partners. Let's see Chris Ariaga, Jim Whitmer, Max Hale. Let's see who else is in here. Cameron Taylor. Let's see Chris Isaacs.
Those non-paintball names in there. Love you all.
Let's see. Justin Deere asked another question. He asks, let's see, let me find it again real quick. He asks, who inspires your swag on the field?
Who inspires my swag on the field? Honestly, as long as I look cooler than Todd Boyer, I don't really care. It's just not that hard to do, but like as long as I look cooler than Todd, like, that's the goal.
Love it. All right. Next question. Let me see if I can find it. Also from Brandon of BEM Raps. He asks you, what was your craziest crossroads decision that you had to make to grow in paintball?
It's a good one. It was one of the things that's hard for me is I don't like leaving a paintball team for no reason. I don't like doing that. In my time, I was playing with the Jits crew, and whenever I was playing out there, like, as I said earlier, great group of guys. Enjoyed playing paintball with them a lot, but financially, it was just very difficult, and I didn't want to bail on them at the time. Like I really didn't, and I just had to because flying from Texas to Florida was just so much more difficult for whatever reason, and it wasn't viable. So playing out and then I chose to go back out and play in California, which it benefited me a lot. It really did. I went back to playing the WCPPL, and I have to say I learned so much playing the Premier Division in that league. Like if there's a player trying to get to the next like high level, step into the Premier Division and go, prove yourself. That's where I feel like I learned a lot. And I'm not saying I'm there yet. I'm not pro. I wouldn't even say I'm anywhere in the realm of a semi-pro. Yeah, I haven't proved myself. But what allows me to be where with the team I'm playing with and compete with them and all of that, I think it came from WCPPL. So my decision going back and playing WCPPL was definitely the one that was difficult, but had to make that decision.
Well, the WC has definitely shown themselves to be a premier tournament series and competition across all levels. So next question is from Sanchito Papacito, and that is Alexander Agosto of TKO Texas Knockout. He asks, what is your favorite mutiny moment?
Oh, wow. That's a that's a one. That's a wild one. I'll try and I gotta think of one that I can say and not get in trouble. There's a couple. Honestly, it was we went out and we had a practice with the Iron Men, and we they gave me like there was just a point in time where they were giving me an opportunity to like really show out and play my game of paintball, and I was having a really great day of paintball against a professional team, and it felt comfortable. I didn't feel any other level, like there wasn't, it felt so equal and it felt great. And then after we had a here, I'll give you another one. Another one's I get off the plane in LAX, and Nevius walks up to me in a pair of black Tims, and the soles are coming off of one of them. And comes up to me. He's like, man, I was talking to this stewardess. She was really pretty, and I was chewing bubble gum, putting it in between the soles of my Timbs, so I could like stick my Timbs together, so she didn't see that I was that my Timbs were sliced in half, and then I get up and the bubble gum didn't work, and she caught me, dog. And that I remember like vividly crying in the airport, like laughing after that moment. But there were a couple others, but for another time.
Love it. All right, so we're pretty much at the end of our show. This is something that I ask everyone. So brought to us by Get That Shot. Message Get That _shot on Facebook or Instagram for media coverage at the upcoming NXL Philadelphia event or at the next Bunkerfest event. Shout out to Get That Shot, one of the, I think actually the first sponsor that I had on the show. So shout out to you, Carlos. So is there anybody in paintball, teams, players, brands, or projects that have caught your attention lately? Who do you think in paintball deserves more recognition for what they're doing?
Shout out All Heart Paintball, my boy Trey Goodwin, T Goody. Hit him up, get your ski masks and your shiesties. He's really started moving with that. I just want to let you know, for the pale boys out there that just turn red and don't tan at all in any way, shape, or form, get yourself a shiesty, find Trey at the event. They go quickly, but you'll be more than happy you did it. I was skeptical at first because I thought it would be hot and stuff like that, but my favorite piece of headgear. So start there. Shout out Carbon Paintball. Carbon Paintball. Like I have now had every single company in this sport as, a sponsor, whatever we really want to call that, in lower division paintball. But yeah, no, Carbon has definitely, they're the most personable guys. It's you walk in the tent and it's like you're just hanging out with your friends. You're saying some funny stuff with them. They're shooting back with you. They don't take themselves too serious, but they are very serious about what they do. And all their gear, like the mask, the seat. I love the mask to death, man. I got the prototype and I haven't worn anything since. Yeah, and their underlayers, phenomenal. I'm sure half of the sport at least wears their underlayer now. So yeah, shout out Carbon Paintball, Weapons Paintball too for our jerseys and other merchandise such as these shirts. Hit the link. And then yeah, KC Sports Complex. Currently, the KC Sports Complex, that field is the field of dreams, and do not be afraid to reach out to any of us on the team or Todd directly about coming and playing at the field. If you want to bring your team out, there will be players out there to play with you. There will be fairly priced paint, and this Defy paint, Todd has now got it all stored up there at the field. So we have so many different options for paint, so you're not going to pull up and have a bad day shooting paint because there's so much and it's all so properly taken care of. So yeah, the Defy paint also, I'll have to shout them out too. And then I think just one last thing, this kid Chris Johnson passed away last year during Thanksgiving break. I was coaching a D5 team just because I wanted to, help some kids out, teach them the sport. And Chris passed away last Thanksgiving. So, prayers out to him and his family. Kid didn't deserve it. Beautiful, amazing human being. And, he would have still been here balling with us today, maybe playing higher than this division we were at the time. So figured I'd shout that out.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Yeah, just one final look at in the chat. Yeah, that looks like that does it for our show. So this final thing brought to us by Compete, which is Jell Stewart's brand. Message them on Facebook or Instagram and mention In the Pits for 10% off of your order of soft goods. So Cal, thank you so much for your time. Do you have any last shout outs or things you'd like to say before we sign off?
Yeah, shout out my mom and dad. Love y'all. Best people on the planet. Shout out the All-Stars. Shout out the violence community. All of that. So thank you all for supporting, and can't wait to see y'all around.
For sure. Yeah. All right. So that does it for our show. Thank you everybody so much for tuning in. Be sure to go follow Cal at Kal Leach on Instagram. What other guests would y'all like to see on the show? Be sure to leave a comment down below. And while you're at it, hit that subscribe button. The show goes live weekly here on youtube.com/@inthepitspaintballpodcast, and recordings are posted to YouTube, Amazon, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify the next day. Quick shout out to my partner and sponsor tier subscribers. We've got a lot of them now. First, FUAthletics, Get That Shot, Paintball Kumite, Compete, Bem Wraps, Skull Monkeys Paintball, Uno's Jerky, Hydra, and XTPL events. So we will see you all next week for episode 52, which will be our 1 year recap and also doing a little bit of NXL Philadelphia preview. So Cal, thank you so much.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it. Had some fun.